Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here with our own Horowitz, co-hosts of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, who we're thrilled to have on our show, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. The AutoLeadStar platform is built on a technology so powerful it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world, at scale and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadStar is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing today.
All right, Ilana, here we are, season 2, episode 2.
Yeah, we are stoked to be back. How are you doing today, Aaron?
Yes, indeed. Happy whatever day it is, Thursday, right?
Thursday.
Listen, we are so excited here we're so excited for our guest today. Someone who is well known in the industry. So, it's one of those moments where I'm going to give the bio, but most people are going to instantly know who it is. It's Jim Ziegler, President, CEO of Ziegler SuperSystems. Jim has been in the industry for 40 years, I think, from hearing one of his lectures, ever since he rolled into Atlanta on I-75. He's worked in innumerable positions in the industry, trained at 15,000 and more dealerships, and really been all over and everywhere helping dealers understand, how to be the best them. Jim, I was interested in your bio before we get into anything else. You have apparently trained in 49 states. I want to know what the one state is you've not done it, or have you already marked it off your list?
I have never made it to Alaska.
Oh.
You made it to Hawaii.
I have desk deals, taken TOs, done F&I in every state except Alaska. I have done every job in a car dealership in every state. I've been the keynote speaker for 98 state dealer conventions, the opening keynote speaker. There's states I've done 4 times, like New Jersey, Texas, New York. It's incredible. I've never made it to Alaska.
But you have made it to Hawaii.
Oh, many, many times. I was consulting the Cutter Group in Hawaii back through the 90s. And
John, he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That was a funny story with the Cutter Group. At the time, they were selling over 60% of the cars on the islands. And it was amazing because I had no problem with them paying my exorbitant fees. I was charging those guys $10,000 a day plus travel, but Herman Jones, their COO, had a problem with my travel expense. Because flying from Atlanta and I don't fly in the back of no planes, I don't even know what goes on back there,
I'll tell you, it's not that fun. I will let you know.
Ilana, you know what the back of the plane is like?
That little secret, yes. I'm a flyer in the back of the plane.
I looked back there one time, Ilana, and people were like 10 rows across, groveling for peanuts. Looked like a prison car.
Yep.
I don't fly back there. So Herman Jones, their COO, my airline tickets from Atlanta to Oahu were like, I don't know, $5,000. And
if you're going out to Hawaii, if someone's bringing you to Hawaii, I think you have to build in quite a significant travel expense. That's what's built into those that
passage.
That's interesting. So Alaska's it. I mean, that's the last.
Not been to Alaska.
Got it. All right. Well, who knows? There may be time ahead. As we come out of 2020 into 2021 here.
Dog don't fly in the back of no planes.
Yes, I was going to say we should.
Alaska. No.
I wanted to intro you as either Jim Ziegler or Alpha Dog. Where did that little nickname come from?
Well, it's amazing. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, on the outskirts in Brazelton, Georgia. I live in Chateau Line Country Club, and we're only 30 miles away from Athens, Georgia, where the Georgia Bulldogs play.
Oh.
And the Georgia Bulldogs are DAWG.
I have an affinity for dog because I'm a Clevelander, and our football team in Cleveland, the Browns, are called the Dogs. So that's been a
So there you go, the DAWG. And the alpha dog on a sled team is the head dog, the one that is leading the team. And the alpha dog is the only one with a view. What are the other dogs looking at?
They're probably the ones that sit in the back of the plane.
I know that because my son, and this is an Alaska connection. I just showed my kids, we have a movie night in my family with my 6 and 4-year-old once a week. And we watch Balto, which is the story of this like famous sled dog that brought medicine to Nome, Alaska, I think it was. And anyways, I learned all about the alpha dog. But interestingly, I looked up this dog, Balto, and he's stuffed. I mean, he died at some point, was stuffed, and he's in Cleveland in the Natural History Museum. And I saw him growing up. In the
Really?
Cleveland So yeah, go figure.
Yeah, like Roy Rogers stuffed Trigger.
Just stuffed. Yeah, it's true. That's right. That is right. So this is great. So Jim, we're very excited to have you. I think there's a lot we can learn from you. Partially because you're willing to speak out and voice your opinion and say things that maybe are not necessarily politically correct when it comes to the politics of the industry, which I think makes it interesting. It's important. One of the areas that I think is fascinating and that you speak about, I think with some insights that aren't common, and I think it would be beneficial for our listeners to hear that and I want to know how this has maybe evolved over the past, through the pandemic. But you speak a lot about the OEM co-op programs and kind of the impact that's had on dealers and on the industry. And I'm wondering kind of, if you were inventing an OEM today and, let's say an OEM brought you in and said, hey, you're our guy. We've got this network of 1,000 dealers, 2,000 dealers. We want you to help us make those dealers as successful as possible for the OEM. What are you going to think about when you design a co-op program? Is there even a co-op program? Do those things exist? How do you attack that if you were kind of, going through this exercise, building it from the ground up? I think that'd be very interesting to.
Wow, that's a lot of questions boiled into one. Let's dissect what you just said. First of all, I'm forming an OEM, and I've got 5,000 dealers, whatever the case. Well, first of all, I'm going to be dealer centric. The very first thing is manufacturers don't know how to sell cars. They never have. They never will. People say to me, well, General Motors is getting in. Shop, click, and drive. What a terrible process that turned out to be. These people have no clue. They haven't seen the ball since the kickoff. So anyway, what I'm talking about with co-op is I'm going to screen the vendors for their effectiveness, not for their willing to play. Because there's a lot of vendors that are willing to play. They're willing to be on the co-op program, and their process is terrible. It's cookie cutter. It's all the same. And it doesn't work for the dealers. I have dealers continually say, well, Jim, it's co-op. Oh, they pay half of it. They pay 3/4 of it. Yeah, but crap is still crap. I'm sorry. So
Very true.
I would screen the effectiveness of the vendors.
Yeah.
Some of the best vendors in the industry are not on the co-op program because they put middle persons. I'm not going to say middlemen. Socially correct. Middle persons in between the dealers and the manufacturers that are raking the profits. I'm not going to name any of them.
Did I mention political correctness?
Yeah. Hey, listen, man, if I was a crook, I'd be so much wealthier. I've always stuck up for the dealers, even when it hurt me. And I will continue
so
to be.
Effectiveness is your barometer of what goes into that program. That's your number one kind of setup.
Yes. Effectiveness. It's got to be an effective program. It's got to be beneficial. It's got to be cutting edge. Right now the buzzwords in the industry is digital retailing. The other buzzword is social media marketing. And you're looking at a guy that turned 74 years old next week. I've got underwear older than both of you, wearing it right now. But anyway, it's crazy because there are some companies out there that they want to remove the human aspect out of the car business. And I don't see that that's going to necessarily happen. I see it's going to be a mesh between human beings operating technology. It's not going to be technology operating human beings. So where do we go? What's the horizon? Do we adapt? Yeah, we adapt. I've adapted so many times, had to reinvent myself and reinvent my processes and reinvent the way we approach the public. 46 years in the business, I've reinvented many, many times. And dealers right now have got to adapt or die. You cannot stay where you are. I just wrote an article for Dealer Magazine. It comes out next week called Adapt or Die. And
I look forward to reading that.
It's going to be about, technology and how we use technology, and does technology use us? And because a lot of the vendors right now are schemers. I mean, there's a plot, and the plot is not so concealed anymore. The plot is to become the dealer, and for the dealers to become the warehouse, because the internet is the very worst thing that ever happened to the car business. The worst. But it didn't sell the one additional automobile. We would have sold as many cars with no internet as we're selling with internet. So let's face it, internet created vendors between us and the customers that are raking their profits off.
Right. I think that's a very important point, meaning the whole idea that this community business where, I once walked into a dealership and I knew that my grandfather bought a car there 70 years ago. They still had the file from 70 years ago of him buying a car there. And, I think what the internet's done in terms of, I think it's changing now. I think dealers are getting back in that direct connection, but the disintermediation of the customer and the dealership has kind of, like dealerships became numbers, they became phone numbers, they became websites, they become prices. And there is that element where like there's this disassociation between the consumer and the seller that I think I think is the story of the internet in a lot of ways. And it's had benefits for consumers, but it's also really hurt our economy. I mean, think about the Amazon effect, the Walmart effect, what that does to Main Street when Walmart opens up within 100 miles of a small town. You see the death of all local businesses. And then every job is a $7 an hour job or $15 an hour job. It's just not good for our society, even though it might be good for that person buying a shirt, at a discount rate, built, made offshore at frankly, a horrible price per labor. So I think there's this element there that we're seeing that's just very, very stark and clear now that maybe wasn't clear 5, 10, 15 years ago when the internet was still new and exciting.
Well, let me finish that thought too. The internet is the worst thing that ever happened to the car business, but it's here. It put vendors in between us, and the vendors took the profits, and the vendors are trying to become the dealer. But now that it's here, it redistributes who gets the deals, and you got to be good at it, because it's going to, the people that are the best with operating the technology are going to be the ones that get the majority of the sales. Adapt or die. Right. The internet's here. The vendors are raking the profits. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's some pretty evil people out there. But anyway, there are some real.
Ilana, we got to bleep.
Yeah, I was like, what are we going to do? Do we need to edit this out? Well, yeah, we could bleep
instead of like bleeping curse words, which we have no problem with, we're going to bleep the,
We're going to have a censored and uncensored version. We'll have a censored and an uncensored.
I'm not going to say a name.
Oh, golly. Well, anyway, there are vendors that do not have the dealer's best interest in mind. And one thing I really hate when a vendor says, "You're the dealer's partner." No, you're not. You're the dealer's assassin. Quit it. Let's get real. And there's some great vendors out there. I mean, there are some vendors that are useful technologies that are helping the dealers, but there's other dealers out there with a real nefarious purpose that they got an agenda. And dealers have got to learn concierge sales. We've got to learn a home delivery. We got to get the Amazon going. We know we have to do that. And like I say, 74 years old, I've reinvented myself so many times. I'm imploring the dealers to reinvent themselves. I'm teaching technology to young people.
So what do you, I'm really curious about that. Like, when you go into a store, I know it's it's probably very robust and holistic the way you look at a store, but like kind of an example of a strong piece of advice that you see comes up a lot when you're talking to a store, what is that, or strong recommendation? What's an example of that?
Well, the first thing we have to do is establish a culture. I don't care how dealers sell cars. One price negotiation, I don't care. How they structure their road to the sale. Now, the road to the sale didn't die. We just put technology into it, and a lot of it now happens on the internet. And we know that. So dealers have to understand we have to have a management process with accountability and measurement. And I don't care what that process is, but once there's a process, that is the law, and there's no room for outlaws. Nobody in the dealership is outside. Once the dealership establishes this is the way we do business, nobody is outside of that process. I don't care what the process is. I don't have an agenda. But once you have established this is the way we do it, then that's the way we do it. And so many dealers aren't true to that. They say they sell cars one way, but they allow individuals within the process to do it any way they choose. I'm up for training Navy SEAL Team 7. I want an organized commando force from the management through the lot attendants. I want everybody in that dealership to be on the program and know what their role in the program is.
Right.
So does that make sense?
I mean, that's obviously not just the dealership, it's every company. I mean, I think about that with us.
I was going to say that. I think
the single greatest challenge is that culture of it's the trusting of the process. It's working according to process. It's you can't build something that scales unless you have those building blocks, and it's you can't build excellence without that, right? It can't be about heroes. It has to be about sort of embedding that into the organization. Very challenging. It's a very challenging thing to do.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, you talked about process and you talked about technology. Oh, sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Elon. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you talked about process, you talked about technology. What does a successful digital dealership look like? I mean, there's obviously balance between in the showroom, outside the showroom. So what does that look like? What have you been telling your dealers?
What is an internet dealership? What is it? Well, first of all, I'm going to have a BDC. There's two schools. Salespeople handle the leads, business development center. I like the idea of a business communications center better than a business development center. I want a session that does inbound and outbound communications, not just inbound communication, distribution. I'm far. I remember when it was telephone centers, call centers. But now I want business communication centers, outbound calls, inbound calls, outbound texts, and there's a lot of legality that goes with text. And most dealers are out of compliance, and there are vendors that are just totally out of compliance. Texting is the way today. I've got 20, 30, 50, 100. I just deleted 100 spam emails. I didn't even look at them, but every text in my phone I read. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got all these unanswered emails. Email marketing is not as effective as once it was, but texting, everybody reads all of their texts. But there's legalities and there's opt-in, opt-out, and there are companies out there doing mass texting right now. Mass texting is illegal, and the fines are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You want to go to jail? You want to become the bride of Big Bubba? Quit it. I don't. That's terrible. But vendors are popping up left and right that are jumping on that. Facebook marketing, the most incredible tool. Google My Business. So dealers don't even understand that Google My Business. You don't even need a website to retail a car. You can do it on Google GMB, but the dealers most dealers today, especially my generation, you know, they don't even know where the on switch on their computer is. you know, you know, get aboard or get out. You know, if you're not into what we're doing, turn it over to a competent manager, and we'll give you a golf bag and a beeper. We'll call you if we need you. Does that make sense, Alana, Aaron?
Yes, definitely. And you mentioned the buzzword digital retailing a bit. How have you been dealing with digital retailing and how much dealerships are adopting it, especially since the pandemic? We actually spoke to a dealership yesterday that said, even throughout this entire pandemic, and they implemented digital retailing before, it was, I think he said 15% of their leads, not even sales, right? Arn, is that correct?
He was saying that essentially the sum up of it was that with all the digital retailing, it in no way, shape, or form replaced or even came close to replacing their sales. And the way we see digital retailing at our company, which we don't talk about too much in this podcast, but just it's like, look, there's 45 shopping cart vendors right now in the industry. You know, you can get a shopping cart from, you know, Cox Auto, you can get it from any website provider, you can get it from Roadster. There's and like I don't know any other industry where the shopping cart is such a big deal. Like, first of all, people aren't buying cars online for the most part in a classic sense, the way that we imagine, right? Secondly, the reality is that digital retailing is a full funnel customer centric experience, or it's nothing. So the shopping cart is a tiny piece of that experience. And, you know, we talk about that a lot, and that's something that is where we kind of disagree with the buzz in the industry a bit. We think it's great that someone has a shopping cart. It's good, get a rich lead, but it's not about that. It's about the whole experience. How do you identify the shopper up funnel? How do you figure out what they actually want? How do you give them the right message and make you one of the few stores they actually call or visit the website of? And then when they're on the website, how do you convince them this is a great place to buy a car and build have a trusting relationship for this very expensive purpose? And yeah, if there's a checkout online, it's great, but I don't think most people are anywhere near using those things.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Very controversial to say. People hate when I say that because we're like a young tech startup. You know, we're probably the most techie startup right now in the industry, and for us to be like talking about it that way is like it's a little counter our brand. Heresy.
Yes. Well, let's talk about digital retailing a second. About a week ago, I had a demo of Darwin.
Hey, by the way, we like all those people. We don't want to. We don't want to rip those folks.
Oh, I'm not going to rip those people. I like those people.
We like Roadster.
Well, you never know, Jim. We never know. We have to preface it.
Let's be good. We're going to.
If I don't like somebody, you will definitely know if I don't like somebody. I mean, I will never say something behind somebody's back that I won't run around and say to their face to get the reaction.
Or on podcasts. Great. Good.
Yeah. I mean, I am not shy about calling out villains. You know,
so we noticed when we were prepping for this podcast,
I will call out a villain. I mean,
we saw a couple good examples of that. Good. Yeah. That's important.
When there was a major vendor that I took on back 7 years ago the CEO looked across the table at me and said, "You cost me $78 million. And the Federal Trade Commission came after me and said that I organized a national boycott, which I deny. I didn't do that. It cost me $50,000 to get out of that with my New York lawyers. But it was like, we were effective. The CEO said something to me that was so profound. He looked across the table and he said the biggest compliment anybody ever said to me. First of all, he said, "You cost me $78 million. And the next thing he said, "We considered buying you off, but we knew it couldn't be done." What a strong testimonial to my legacy. Wow. I have taken some hard hits. And digital retailing right now is not working. Period. It's working for a percentage of people. There's a low percentage of people that'll buy from Carvana and have the car delivered at their home, but that is not a major percentage. It's a small percentage of the industry. Me personally, you know, a lot of people understand I'm a cancer survivor. I had a major cancer earlier last year, and 3 surgeries. I spit in the devil's face 3 times, and maybe I'm immortal. I don't know. I'm cancer free right now. But I like to fill out and I saw all sorts of doctors. And I lost 85 pounds. But I'll tell you what, I fill out my paperwork online, but I physically go see the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way people are buying cars. They aren't totally transacting online. There's only a small percentage of people that go entirely through the process. And that's one of the things I liked about Darwin when I took the demo with Darwin is Darwin will allow the dealer to adjust how much or how little human interactions in the process.
Nice.
The dealer can take any part of it right down to total transaction, or they can still keep their managers in it. And in the car business, we have to learn to use Zoom, which we're using right now on this podcast. We have to learn to use Zoom to communicate with consumers and close sales on the internet in live time, face to face, because what we're doing right now with this podcast is we are humanizing ourselves. Hey, look at Ziegler. He's smiling. He's a person. You know, it's not flat text or a photograph. You know, this is real people in real time. And that's what we need to learn to do. Video is the most amazing dimension of the sale. When we can get in front of the consumer with video in real time while they're in the shopping process, when that customer hits our website and they identify that they are currently shopping, that's the time we need to zoom in on them. Would you mind if we did a video conference? And right now there's a couple CRMs that are building video into their process, which I love. I mean, there are some archaic CRMs out there right now. And the CRM is the heartbeat of the dealership. And customer relationship management, there are CRMs that crash at the end of every month because they're built on old platforms that can't accommodate today's business. And even though they're some of the best CRMs when they work, if they don't work all the time, they're not working. So some of the new CRMs coming in have got video built in the platform, and I'm not going to name them, and I'm not going to do one of those, but you know, there are some great CRMs being developed. Dealers need to look at new technology. Don't fall in love with the people you've always done business with, because the people you've always done business with are becoming obsolete. They're some of the vendors you're doing business with are sinking down in the tar pits, eating the last brown shriveled leaves off the trees. You know, they're soon to be extinct. They're not relevant anymore. And that's why they go back, and when you examine ROI on your vendors, they want to talk about, well, we have attribution. Attribution, get out of here. Show me the money. Attribution is a very real science, but it's also the most bogus presentation that most vendors are using, because we got to remember, figures lie when liars figure. And there are a lot of liars trying to show that they're relevant, and they're no longer relevant. I mean, some of the major vendors in the country right now are not relevant when it comes to ROI, return on your investment. Show me the money, show me the deals. Don't talk about attribution and influence when you don't have it. You know, I can manipulate figures, and don't ever trust figures supplied about a vendor by the vendor. If a vendor gives you figures about their own company, what are you, dumbass? Quit it. You know, you don't believe that. And don't ever trust figures about a vendor supplied by another vendor that the vendor hired.
I think we're going to need to start bringing Jim onto our check-in calls.
Yeah, seriously, that would yeah. Yeah, Jim. At some point, we'll show you what we do. We'll set up a time.
Get him on our check-in calls and have him preach for us.
I want to know, Jim. I want to know what happened. So first of all, I just Googled kind of your history a little bit more. I didn't gotten that deep, and I see what you're talking about from back in the day. It's still on the internet.
Yeah, the Federal Trade Commission thing is on there too.
Battles, the war, it was pretty widely covered, I see.
They said that I was the ringleader of a national boycott.
Yeah, no, we won't get into it, but
I didn't do that. I mean, just because I wrote a blog with 178,000 comments on it from car people, I didn't organize a boycott.
Right.
Thank God
I have a question. Like, you're such a, you talked about video. I assume that's been a big part of the past, 9 months for you. Have you managed to keep your training and speaking happening during this period, or like?
Thank you for asking. I have a free video training program called alphadogondemand.com. It's free management training. I was a very successful manager in the car business. I set records back in another day, and
40 to 840 was it? What was that quote one time?
840 units a month, but I don't take credit for that. I was one of the managers in that dealership. I wasn't the one that was in charge. I was a provider, but I was part of Camelot, and I set some F&I records, and some of those have been broken. Some of those have never been broken. But, I was a very successful manager. Most of the trainers in the business today never were managers. And I can't believe they're actually training management from a sales mentality. I have a management mentality. I deal at the top level. I talk about the greater concept of running a dealership. And most people don't know how to manage managers or how to be a manager. So I've got all that on my platform, Alpha Dog, D-A-W-G, alphadogondemand.com, and it's free. My sponsors are paying for it. And, the sponsors are only sponsors that I endorse. I will not take you couldn't give me enough money to advertise on my platform if I don't endorse the sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So, once again, you asked me earlier, would I endorse a sponsor I don't believe in? No. Will I take money from a sponsor I don't believe in? No. I'm a fairly wealthy guy. I'm not, there's wealthier trainers in the business, but I have more money than I can spend in what's left of my lifetime, or my wife. I mean, we got some money saved up. We live in a country club environment with a house that we wrote a check for. And I'm talking about a 7-digit check, So, we have enough money. I don't need anybody's money right now.
Be thankful for that.
Yeah, and I took it out of the stock market recently. It's all sitting on the sidelines. I think the economy's.
Why did you take it out of the stock market? We could have a whole podcast about this. The best time to invest.
Oh, that's going to be politics. That's going to be politics, and
okay, I understand.
A lot of people don't like my politics because I'm very conservative.
I got it.
And
I understand why you took your money out.
I agreed with the protest yesterday. Yeah, I agreed with it. I didn't agree with what happened, but I agree with what they were saying.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks most people think what happened was pretty, tragic. It's a tough day. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird to do. It's been such a tough year. Every day's felt like a day. So.
It got more coverage than the riots in the streets last summer, though.
Jim, so have you actually been doing trainings though you've been doing it? So you run through AlphaDog through your regular program. Do you ever go live and do trainings?
Oh, absolutely. I do it all the time. I do podcasts with people in the industry that are successful. Like I did two broadcasts with Germain Toyota out of Naples, Florida, that are selling 500 units a month. And they're a very technology intrinsic dealership. They're using a lot of technology blended in with their management style. So, Brian Kramer, the general manager there, is a good friend of mine.
He's gotten a lot of good press lately. I've seen him in a lot of
he's out there. Well,
definitely out there.
And I'm going to have a lot of people on the Alpha Dog On Demand platform with me. It's not just me. And BDC, I've got Jennifer Briggs, Bobby Heron, Elise Kephart.
We work with Jennifer.
You know those people?
Jennifer Briggs with Tom Wood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer's one of my better friends.
Nice.
Her, Bobby Heron, and Elise Kephart, I call my posse.
Oh, no way. Yeah, we know Bobby too.
Yeah, they all came down and they were in Atlanta just before I had my cancer surgery last January. And they spent the whole weekend with us, and we went to nice restaurants, and we went to antique fairs, and my wife was a good friend with all three, and we had a great weekend. And Elise Kephart, the YouTube diva, I sort of discovered her. Well, I did discover her. She was working in a dealership, and I saw her videos online, and I brought her out to speak at my Internet Battle Plan conferences. And next thing you know, she's a national figure in the car business, and she's left the dealership. I'm sure they were happy about that. I've opened the door for a lot of national trainers.
Listen, Jim, it's been a pleasure. The best news of this whole podcast is that you're feeling well and everything's healthy right now. And that's, as my grandmother would say, knock on wood. That's a good thing. And there you go. Knock on glass these days, right? Listen, it was really a great pleasure to meet you. And when you get someone from the internet suddenly in a conversation, which is kind of the experience we're having, it really is a humanizing experience. And I feel like you've been very open and just honest and straightforward with us, and that's who you are, and it's been a pleasure to experience that up close. So give us again that website. Just give us the URL.
Okay, it's alphadogendemand.com. And it's DAWG. I'll tell you a shortcut. ZieglerOnDemand.com will also get you there.
Okay, great. Ilana, we learned here that we must get Jim's cell phone because he won't look at an email. So we're going to have to be
when we wrap, we'll have to get your cell phone number.
Yeah. All right, listen. So Ilana, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. That was fun, enlightening. I'm so happy you came to life for us. And for our listeners, I'm sure they absolutely loved this episode. If you did tune in, Inside Auto Podcast, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.